This is Andrew Lawton with True North, here for another True North interview, this time in conversation with a very brave and courageous woman that I hope you're familiar with. If not, you very soon will be. And that's Yasmine Mohammed. She is the founder of Free Hearts, Free Minds, and also the woman behind Confessions of an Ex-Muslim. Yasmine, thank you so much for taking the time to speak today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Andrew.
Now, this is a day on which you've been very vocal and not without controversy, and that is for some people World Hijab Day, but for you a very different occasion that you're marking, and that's No Hijab Day. And I was wondering if you could first off tell me why this is something that you've decided to champion.
Sure. Well, I just heard of World Hijab Day 3 years ago. So not last year, but the year before was the first time I'd ever heard of World Hijab Day. And I realized that it was a day where Muslim women set up booths in 140 different countries around the world. So who knows how many booths in every country, where they encourage non-Muslim women to wear the hijab for a day. And when I first heard about this happening, and I was seeing pictures on social media and videos of free women choosing to put this on their heads, I just was floored. I could not believe the confusion and the betrayal, and I just ended up with a migraine and spent the day in bed. And the next year, so last year, I decided to fight back. And so instead of encouraging non-Muslim women to wear the hijab, what we should be doing is talking about how this hijab is affecting so many hundreds of thousands of women across the globe. We should need to talk about how so many women are forced into wearing this hijab, whether it's by their governments, their societies at large, like they can't go to school unless they're wearing a hijab in some countries, or whether it's by their families that can abuse them and sometimes even kill them. Here in Canada, we had a 16-year-old girl that was killed in Mississauga, Ontario, because she refused to wear the hijab. So that's what we need to be talking about. We need to be talking about these women that are being forced to wear this hijab. We need to be talking about the women in Iran that are taking off their hijabs and swaying them on sticks silently in protest, and those women getting thrown in prison for sometimes upwards of 20 years in prison for removing the hijab. So that's the real problem. That's what we need to be addressing. And so I flipped it around. And on their World Hijab Day, I said, you know what? This is No Hijab Day. And I took off a hijab and I burned it. And I said, this is in solidarity with all the women across the world that would love to do this, that would love to be free from hijab. And since then, the social media campaigns that have been happening, not just from Iran and from other countries that had already been fighting against the hijab for a long time, but places like Saudi Arabia, for the first time, we saw a hashtag called Burn the Niqab, where women were removing the veil off of their face and burning it and posting those videos online. And another hashtag that said the niqab is under my foot, which in Arab culture, for something to be under your foot is incredibly degrading. And they would take pictures of this with their foot on top of it. And it was really heartening for me to see all of that. And so when No Hijab Day rolled around again this year, I was hoping for a lot more support, but I really was not expecting. I was so surprised to see the hundreds, like the thousands of posts of women from all over the world, women from Turkey that are posting pictures of themselves when they were wearing hijab, and then today when they're not, women that are talking about they're being forced to wear it. They're only wearing it because they fear that their families will kill them. Other women talking about, I'm only wearing it because I have to, otherwise I wouldn't even be able to go to school. Different reasons for why they're being forced to wear it. But, you know, for these women to speak up and to tell their truth is incredibly brave, because even for me here in Canada, when I removed the hijab, my mother threatened to kill me. And, you know, in the United Kingdom, there's a model there named Dina Tokyo. She's a modesty model. So she modeled with the hijab for many years. And now she's decided to take off the hijab. And the backlash that she's receiving is just insane. She has a video where she just does nothing but read all of the hate. And that video is almost an hour long. So these are in Western free countries. So you can just imagine when I talk about these women posting these pictures and videos from places like Iran and Saudi Arabia and Turkey and, Muslim majority countries, it is phenomenally brave of them to do that. But the reason why and you have to imagine too, like the very few women that do speak up, how many women are behind them that would love to do the same, but are not willing to take such a huge risk. So for No Hijab Day, long story short, I'd really like to support those women. And I really wanted to highlight their bravery. And I'm really happy to see that that's happening.
Now, a lot of the women that I've spoken to who wear hijabs, especially in a Western context, not a global context where, as you know, you have all of these countries where it's legislated either directly or indirectly, but women that I've encountered in North America will say it is a choice and it's empowering to wear it. And in some cases, they're actually very offended by the immodesty of a lot of Western dress. Does your movement alienate them, women for whom it is a choice, who like it, who believe it is a positive expression of their faith?
Well, those women that feel that way are very lucky to be living in secular free countries that allow them to express their feelings, that allow them to wear whatever they want to wear in order to feel closer to their faith or for whatever reason. So my concern isn't about women that are already in free countries that are able to wear what they want before they walk out the door in the morning. My concern is for all the women that are unable to wear what they want and that do not have that choice. And like I mentioned, it's not only in Muslim majority countries. I have women posting pictures from Australia and from Canada and from France and from the US. Like I gave you the example of me here in Canada and Aqsa Parvez, the 16-year-old girl here in Canada as well. So these are not ideas that have borders. These are not issues that are exclusive to Muslim majority countries. So sure, there can be women that feel like they want to wear the hijab, whether they are here or there. And there are also women that feel that they do not want to wear the hijab, whether they're here, whether they are there. But the difference being that women who do not want to wear the hijab are not getting any support. They're not the ones that are getting, 140 countries supporting them by having a World Hijab Day, right? So this is what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to address this problem because women wearing hijab in Western countries is not a problem. That's already there. Why are we talking about it? Why does there need to be a protest about something that is already a non-issue? We have people wearing turbans. We have people wearing kippas. We have people wearing anything that they want to on their heads to express their faith. That's not a problem in any of these countries. So why is it an issue? The issue is when women can't wear what they want.
Yeah, and that's something that I found when I first learned of World Hijab Day to be really absurd, because let's assume for a moment that it is a religious garment. And I know that that in and of itself is not something for which there's unanimous agreement, but a religious garment, that means it's only of value to people who are of that religion. And I would never, as a Christian, say, okay, it's everyone wear a cross day. You're Jewish, you're Muslim, you're atheist, I don't care, put on a cross. And my Jewish friends would never say to me, you got to wear a yarmulke today in solidarity, or a turban or anything like that. And that in and of itself strikes me that the hijab, in some senses, has become a lot more of a political discussion than a religious discussion for some of these people. And I wonder if that's a new phenomenon.
I think it absolutely has become a political statement to wear the hijab. And to your point of, you're not going around encouraging people to wear, a crucifix or anything like that. But when they were encouraged, there was one university where they were trying to encourage the girls to wear hijab. And one of the girls said, no, I don't want to. And they, in fact, tried to get her expelled. And they said that she was Islamophobic because she refused to wear the hijab. So that's how they treat a non-Muslim woman who doesn't want to wear a hijab. Just imagine a fellow Muslim woman who doesn't want to wear the hijab. So yeah, it is quite presumptuous and odd for them to go around essentially bullying people into wearing their garment that represents their religion. Like, why are you forcing that upon other people? And yeah, you're right. It has become political, for them to identify that student as Islamophobic, and for them to now capitalize on how that word is being used in order to suppress any kind of criticism of the Islamic religion, or in this case, to suppress the fact that she doesn't want to celebrate the tools of the Islamic religion. I think that it's a definite reaction to Trump. So there's that whole anti-Trump group, which is why you would see the hijab in the liberal women's march. I mean, a hijab should be nowhere near a liberal women's march. It has nothing to do with liberty. It is the opposite of feminism. It was incredibly weird to see it there. But the reason why it was there was because that Trump was essentially an anti-Trump rally. And Trump had the so-called Muslim ban. And so people that hate Trump will just decide that they're going to support Islam and the religion that, that where Muslims, the countries where Muslims come from. And that's so confusing because those people will actually even say positive things about Iran because Trump hates Iran. So they are just, in this very short-sighted reactionary anti-Trump thing where they realize anything that he says anything positive about, they hate. And anything that he says anything negative about, they love, without using their brains. So what ends up happening here is when they're supporting the hijab, they end up supporting modesty culture. I mean, people who are huge feminists, like you've got Alicia Keys or, influential people like Miley Cyrus celebrating the fact that Barbie is wearing a hijab now. Like, this is the same woman that talks about free the nipple and is going on about women's freedom and feminism is like every second word out of her mouth.
Very vehemently condemn evangelical modesty culture or Christian modesty culture. And that's so it's not even where you can say it's a religious freedom discussion for these people.
Absolutely. You're absolutely correct. So when it comes to Christians even practicing their faith in the most benign ways, they'll get a extreme reaction from this liberal or this left side of the political sphere. But then Muslims practicing their religion in a quite a aggressive, obnoxious way will get them to be celebrating that. So yeah, you're right. It's not about religious freedom. It's specifically there's an incredible difference between. So one of my friends, Faisal Mutar, gives this description, this example all the time, where he talks about he was speaking to somebody from a left-leaning university one time, and he said, "Yeah, a friend of mine is homophobic. He thinks that gay people should be killed, and he thinks that anybody who leaves their religion should be killed." And he started listing out all of these things. And the person just assumed, he's like, "Oh yeah, that must be like a disgusting Republican far right." And he's like, "No, actually it's a Muslim." And then they were like, "Oh, sorry." So that's a problem. Like if we're going to identify hate and if we're going to identify issues that need to be addressed, then regardless of the skin color or the ethnicity of the actor or of the person, causing these actions, those actions do not change. The judgment based on those actions being good or bad, right or wrong, morally right or wrong, does not change based on who the perpetrator is. That's irrelevant.
So on this day, I just want to make sure people understand where you're coming from here. This isn't about condemning the people that do choose this for whatever reason. You're condemning the people that are either sitting by idly and glorifying something that in some cases is forced, and more importantly, the people that are doing this forcing. And I guess, is there a level of optimism you have that there is going to be any change, especially in these other countries where women's rights are not even remotely on the front burner of political discourse?
I don't think that I'm going to see any change in those countries in my lifetime. The changes that I've seen already are way more than I expected to see. So hopefully I could be wrong on that front. But I'm a Canadian and my daughters are Canadian and I live in Canada. And my biggest concern are people here in the West. And also because I identify with liberal feminists. That's who I consider myself. And so when I see people that are supposedly standing up for the same things that I believe in, so confused, I feel like it's my duty to communicate to them exactly how wrong they are being right now. I don't think that it's coming from a place of, I don't think it's coming from a place of animosity or aggression or anything like that. I think it's coming from ignorance. So I think that Canadians in general, people in the West in general, want to be inclusive. They want to be supportive. They want to be welcoming. And so they're just confused with how they're doing that. So instead of just saying, yes, we support people to practice their religions in any way they want, which is fine, but then we need to have a stop sign. We say, yeah, you can practice your religion however you want in your mosques or in your churches or in your synagogues or in your temples, but not in public schools, not in the public sphere. Do you know what I mean? Like, there needs to be limits to that. So we need to also have those limits when we're talking about hijab too, right? Like, we can say, yes, that's fine. Everybody should be able to wear the hijab however they want. That's fantastic. We celebrate that. But then we also need to be talking about the opposite side of that coin too, which is there are a lot of women that don't want to wear the hijab. And that's what this day is addressing.
Joining me is Yasmine Mohammed, founder of Free Hearts, Free Minds, and of course, champion in this context of No Hijab Day. Yasmine, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Andrew.